The girls are doing a great job, which means clients are getting a good experience, which is helping all the way around. So
great. So
yeah.
they're staying in their lane?
Yes. Yeah, I would say for the most part, definitely. And I talked to Jackie this week too about helping with Kathy in particular, like having her have another resource at corporate, like so instead of coming to me when, oh my gosh, this surveillance doesn't work, what do I do? And I'm like, well, go to MB Admin. Well, I did, and I haven't heard back from it. It's been 2 days. I got to figure this out. So I think Jackie will be a better resource to help keep me out of that stuff as well.
Her position was designed, or that position was designed to be your legs and your eyes and your ears and your hands up here at corporate. When the departments have other priorities, she'll be the person that you want to go to get things resolved. She's literally she's your account manager. She's your liaison. She's the person that you want to go to so that your team has a resource beyond you so that you can obviously become more consistent in the origination arena.
Right. So that way I can continue to be more, yeah, that's good.
So help me understand, how do you define your client experience? Like, what's your definition of a client experience that fits your agenda?
My agenda as far as like what we do logistically, or just kind of describing it?
How do you define whether or not your clients are getting a good experience?
Well, I guess number one would just be feedback, and we ask them for that all the time. And in the midst of the transaction, I have a phone call that I make to the client just for nothing more than to check in and to get feedback and see how we're doing, because I told them up front I was going to do that, and it's important to me that they're having an amazing experience, so I'm going to check in with them, in the middle of the road to see how that is, because I don't know if I can necessarily define it. I think, generally, we all know what clients want, but sometimes you got to find out what's important to them, and then just make sure that you're doing that throughout the transaction too. Some people are going to be more into the detail. Others could care less. They don't want to be bothered. There's different things. So I do that midterm call just to try to get feedback from them, and that's a great time to ask for a referral if they say you guys are doing awesome. So
you hit the nail on the head.
And then
I always looked at the success of our process, because you and I have talked many times about I was never a micromanager. I believe that people that you bring onto your team should be empowered to do the right thing, and it's hard to tell people what the right thing is. And so and Tony, I think maybe you and I talked about this at some point, maybe a year ago, but I believe that the more times that you get a thank you and I appreciate you and a wow and some kind of an accolade from a client means that you're making the right choices. And if your goal every time that you pick up the phone or send an email is to get the client to say thank you, then I know that you're making choices that are helping brand the company in a way that I would do it if I was in their position. And so every time that you're able to get that, the goal then would be as Kathy and as Sean interact with the clients, it's getting them to leverage the conversation, because what you want Kathy to be able to do is not only receive those accolades, but also be the one that helps influence their decision to help refer people back to the team. And I think when that happens, I think as that happens on a more consistent basis, you gain, which I think is pivotal for you, which is the confidence of knowing that your team's doing the right thing without having to worry about all the details. If you're getting your referral partners to refer you and you're getting current client referrals from people in the process, you can literally step back and go, everybody's not only in the right seat, but everybody's on the right bus. And I think our goal over the next several weeks should be, let's really make sure that that's a priority for Kathy and for Linda on Tony's team, to make sure that that's how they're going to be judged, not just on closing loans, because that's what everybody does. If you're in this business, you guys are really good at closing loans. You guys know your product, you guys know your craft, you guys know what you're doing, but the difference between you and every other loan officer is how well you're able to get that client to be an advocate of you. And if you think about how much easier it is to get people that work in the process with you to refer you, it's so much easier to do that than it is to get people that have closed on a loan. Going back to your database and getting them to refer you is sometimes a lot harder than getting the people that are actively engaged in the home buying process, presently.
Mm-hmm.
That's the easiest time to get people to refer you because they're. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Pardon me. That is a revelation to me, because that's not something that I've focused on. Is actively it just makes perfect sense, because when they're actively engaged in the process, it's top of mind, and their emotions are running higher, preferably on the good side versus the bad side. But if their emotions are running higher.
Right. We get paid to do three things, and I know that I preach this a lot, but the one thing that I've always really focused on was we get paid to manage people's fears and expectations. Our team, their job is to carry that torch of the expectations that we set for our clients if we choose to meet them. And I know, Tony, you don't meet with your clients. I know, Kristen, you do. But the reality is that when you are actually engaged with your clients and understand that your job or your team's job is to move the file along, which is what they get paid to do, but the future of your business is built on your ability to manage your clients' fears and expectations, because when you're able to do that, you're able to generate advocacy in them, and that means that they're actively telling people about you. And you're spot on, Tony. I mean, think about when somebody goes and they find a house that they love. Who are they? Do they not tell everybody in their life that they found a house? Think about all the friends that they know that they're telling that they're moving. Think about all the people they tell after the home inspection goes through, after the appraisal goes through, after the approval comes in, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's kind of, you guys have heard about the reticular activator, where, you're pregnant, all you see is pregnant lady. So it's the same thing when they hear home buying. That's all they're thinking about, So they're talking about it to everybody they know anyway. So
right. It's 100%. It's 100%. It's a proven psychological phenomenon that when you're engaged in something, you notice everybody else doing it. And so just think about when they're at work at lunch. Just think about when they're hanging out with their friends or they're talking to their family members. If you haven't set the stage, which is what we talked about the last time, if you didn't do a great job of setting the stage up in the beginning, think about how many people you've talked to over this year and how many people you've actually done a great job for, how many times you've gotten a thank you from them, and how many times you've delivered on what you created as an expectation, but never have received anything other than the paycheck that you would have gotten whether you did a good job or not.
Yep.
And the reality is your current clients that you guys are working with are all advocates of your business and would gladly refer you if they A, knew about it, and B, were convicted that that was part of the agreement that they signed up for when they decided to work with you. The reason we're having this isn't for you guys as much as it is by instilling that mindset in Kathy and in Linda. You're going to free yourself from having to worry about that pillar, and instead of them being an expense or a liability to the team, they're not an expense and a liability in the sense of they do a great job and they perform a very high function. But if they're able to generate business out of their efforts by communicating value and capitalizing on it, how great would it be to see your current client referrals increase to the point where you're getting 3 to 4 current clients a month that are coming just from the fact that you guys are doing a great job, and you're doing a great job because the clients are referring you. It just takes that full of, hey, Kathy, you're doing an amazing job, and I know you're doing an amazing job because look at the referrals that we're getting. There's validation and commitment and dedication to everything that comes from a referral that you don't ever have to question and actually have to babysit your teams with anymore. And so what I want is, have you guys been practicing setting that expectation up in the beginning of before you hand your clients off to your team? Are you setting the stage? Are you preparing them for the realities of what's going to happen and who's going to be handling what? Are you guys taking the time to really lay the proper foundation to give Kathy and Linda the best chance of success?
No, I'm not. Tony, I don't know about you, but I need to work on that. I mean, I'm doing a handoff, but I'm not setting the expectation of needing a referral.
Yeah, and Doug, is that what you're referring to, that we're setting the expectation for them providing referrals during the process?
Well, the expectation of Linda and Kathy are going to take over and you're going to communicate to them and really emphasizing, I mean, Kristen, you said that you call them midstream because you want feedback. Well, you're looking for feedback because you want to improve on the system. I think you have the ability to set that stage in the very beginning because you take the time to tell them that, but I think it's imperative to kind of position it to where we've built a mortgage practice around our clients' relationships and our ability to exceed our clients' expectations. We spend a lot of time navigating the loan process, which everybody knows can be extremely difficult. There's literally 100 things that could go wrong. I have control of 10 of them. You have control of 10 of them. The appraiser, the title company, the surveyor, the home inspector. I mean, there's so many things that could go wrong. I work with clients that want to work with me because they know how great of a job my team does for them. And by doing that, we are going to spend our time and energy making sure this process goes really, really smoothly. But I need your help with something, Mr. Client. I need you to understand that our business doesn't operate like this unless we create advocates in our clients, meaning you. So you were referred to me by so-and-so. This is where I would pull out the triangle of trust script, and I would have the conversation and saying, this is why it's so important. And if you have that conversation with the client and they can visually see where they fit into the picture, they then understand that they eventually can become that referral partner that you're looking for, because by becoming that referral partner of yours, that means that their needs, their goals, their dreams, their challenges, their issues are going to be handled with such high priority because they see the value of what you're putting into the relationship. And then that's the time that you go, and I've developed a team to support this. And so through the process, you're not going to be talking to me as much. I'm going to call you midway through just to check in, but Kathy's going to take over. Sean's our processor. But they're going to be making sure that you're going through the process in such a positive fashion that you're going to want to advocate us. And then that's how you end it. And then Kathy knows that when she picks up the phone and she calls them for an introduction, she can go ahead and continue that conversation by saying, I'm sure Kristen told you that our businesses all refer to us and we count on people like you to endorse us to the people you care about. I'm going to be responsible of taking a loan from the start to the finish and bring you to closing around the expectations. And my number one concern is to make sure that that we're managing all the details and the fears and the anxieties that you're going to have. And that's our number one concern. But if we do that, we can count on you, right, to refer us to the people you care about. And every time that she hears a thank you or a wow from them, she can lightheartedly go, hey, Mr. Jones, thank you very much. Remember, we're counting on you. Don't keep us a secret. That conversation every time you talk to a client, day in and day out, it gets to be almost comical, and pretty soon you don't even have to bring it up. Pretty soon the client's going to feel the pressure of wanting to refer you, not because they feel like you're selling them or selling them to do it. They're going to feel compelled because they know that that was the agreement that they signed up for when they agreed to work with you guys.
Are you recording this, by the way? You didn't forget to hit the record button, did you?
I did not forget this time. But the point is, guys, is that this isn't about generating referrals for the team as much as it is being able to give you both the confidence of knowing that your team is doing exceptionally well in their arena or in their lanes. And the way that you manage it is, I want to see current client referrals. So you work on the scripting, you work on the conversation, you teach them to capitalize on it, and then you reward them for the referrals that come in. And then you reward them for the referrals that actually close. And that gives them an opportunity to earn more money and to feel like every time they have to put up with the bullshit, there could be something valuable in it for them, because when you reach the point of desperation, that's the time in which you can show up and be a superstar to these people, and they become huge advocates because they realize how much work you put into it. It isn't a surprise because you set the expectations up in the beginning, and you did the proper handoff, and you've now built, just by doing the handoff the right way, you've built a pillar of your business that requires very little, any effort beyond what you're doing now to see your volume increase with it. I don't know, does that make sense?
Definitely.
Tony, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's what I'm finding, so to answer your question about whether or not I've been having those types of conversations this week, the answer is yes. And I've realized how important it is that you have to be intentional about it. And it takes being able to really incorporate that language into your lexicon to make it feel
natural.
Natural to the point where it's making a transition isn't really isn't awkward, because I had the conversation I had the conversation last night, and it was a referral from a realtor who but it was for a refinance transaction, and the guy was doing a little bit of he was doing some shopping around.
Yeah.
So I tried to have that conversation, and it wasn't nearly as smooth and wasn't nearly as polished, but the end result was that just based on the feedback that he gave me, it was what I inferred from his feedback was that the other 3 lenders that he had already talked to just talked numbers and rate.
Bingo.
And didn't really have a more,
yep.
I mean, we had a higher level or a deeper conversation, for lack of a better phrase. And, whether or not that's going to turn into a loan, who knows?
Well, we'll stop right there for a second. I will tell you that you just hit on one of the biggest missteps that most loan officers make. You hit on the one thing that we all struggle with. You basically made the inference that your presentation sucked. You just got done saying the client saw the value in it, but you judged yourself based on what you've heard me say and how I've said it.
Yes.
I've done this for 20 years. You have to realize that when I first started doing this, I wasn't nearly as polished as you guys are in your craft. I bumbled my way through it, but what I kept realizing, that the end result was exactly the same. It didn't matter how you said it. It mattered why you said it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I said it was more powerful than even why I said it. And the truth is, guys, is whenever you say it, it impacts people, because nobody, to your point, 3 other lenders only talk numbers because that's the only thing that they have. Your ability to communicate a higher value around relationships is going to do this for you. And you guys don't get it yet, but you will the more you practice it. It insulates you from the economy. It insulates you from the economic challenges that we're going to face when rates go up. People aren't going to remember you because of your rates and fees. They're going to remember you for how you made them feel. You're not going to get every client.
That's right.
We know that. But I will tell you that every time a client hears something different when they talk to you than versus another lender, you stand out in the crowd. You stand out bigger and better than they ever could have imagined, because nobody talks like this. And when it's genuine, I don't care if you stumble, it's genuine. When you say it, if it's genuine and it comes from a place of sincerity, people feel it before they hear it. Before it resonates with them, they feel it. They can see and understand what you're telling them, because nobody else in this business talks to people like this. And that's the beauty of it. It's practically easy. You could literally get out a crayon and a napkin and draw the triangle of trust, and people are like, damn, that's awesome. That's what I've been looking for. And you don't even have to talk about rates and fees as much, because people see you for being more than just a rate and a cost. We live in an experiential economy, guys. Our ability to sell the experience is why people use us. It's not because we sell a rate and fee. Your team, and why we are having these calls, is because we have to instill what we're doing into our team's culture, so that as you let go of managing the team on a day-to-day basis with the results, you can manage them based on the referrals that they're getting and you can continue to go out there and build better and meaningful relationships with your referral partners, because you'll have that pillar, your current client pillar, your database pillar, and anything else that you want to use. But your database, or your current client pillar and your past client pillar only comes from our ability to communicate our value from the onset.
That makes sense.
You got to work on setting the stage, you got to work on the handoff, and you got to make sure Linda and Kathy are solid on what they're telling them. Do you guys have an idea of what your team leaders talk to their clients about? Do you guys make them make an intro call?
Yeah, I think, Kathy, you're on the phone, right? I thought she was.
Yeah, her name's up there. Her name's up there, but I don't see her. She looks like she's muted. She's on the computer.
Oh,
no worries.
She can't unmute herself. I was just going to ask her to kind of talk through what she says with the handoff, and she, typically calls because there'll be things, a few items missing on the 1003 that we've got to fill in, history of job or whatever. So she'll call them and start that process, and then she kind of takes over from there.
I'm here.
Hey, Kathy.
I can hear everything you guys were saying. I just Hi, Doug.
She was scrambling. How are you? I'm great, Kathy. Finally, we get a chance to talk.
Yeah. So, yeah, Kristen pretty much summed it up. I do, in today's society, a lot of time people are working, they prefer email, but I do try to call people and fill them out and let them know what we're missing. And, I've even had a borrower ask me, hey, can you just text it to me? And
right.
I don't have any problem texting, but, yeah, some type of communication up front is always, I have to, because when there's things that are missing and, to get a complete application, you've got to have communication.
Can I make a suggestion with you guys about the whole people wanting emails and text messages?
Sure.
When was the last time you guys talked to your doctor's office via text or an email?
Right. Today.
Today?
Yeah. Okay. A lot of doctors nowadays like to go through the MyChart thing where you can communicate with them through a message.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I tend to disagree with that in the beginning, and I'm not saying that over a period of time it doesn't make sense to do it that way when you've established a relationship with somebody. I mean, your doctors have probably been your doctors for a while, but I believe that in the beginning you have to be able to communicate, and it has to be done verbally because of the effectiveness of nonverbal and body language and tone and words have on people. I mean, words literally make up 5% of the effective communication in our dialogues with each other. Tone makes up another 37%, and I think body language makes up 55%, or something around that range. But words make up literally 5% of the successful communication. When you're talking about what you're giving to people, giving and exchanging information is exactly what the internet and text messages should be used for. However, when you're being given a chance to establish a relationship with somebody, I think the reason and the purpose mindset has to kick in, which is the reason you're calling them is just to get the updated documents or to follow through on the stuff that's missing. But the purpose of the call is to get them to understand why you're calling them and why they should care about you in their life. Why should I care that you're working with me, and why should I care that you're bothering calling me? I'm busy. Well, you know what, Mr. Client? We have found in our experience that this is probably the greatest time when most mistakes and delays happen in a loan process is in the initial phone calls after the application has taken place. I'm sure you're extremely busy, but we take your home buying process extremely seriously, and because our business is 100% referred to us, we can't take the chance of having anything missed. So if it's all the same, I'd love to schedule just a 15 to 20 minute call with you real quick so that we can set up, so that we can figure out the best way to move forward. Plus, I really would like to introduce myself too, so you'll know who's going to be handling your paperwork, because I think I'm going to learn a lot about you and you don't know anything about me. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, and I agree with you 100%. That's how I kind of feel like I break the ice with new clients. I've been talking to Kristen, is me picking up the phone and saying, hey, I'm Kathy, Kristen's loan partner, and I wanted to call and introduce myself to you. And and then I kind of go into the roles about, what I need, and from, once we get the documents signed and we get to that point that they will be handed over to processing, and introduce Sean so that, they kind of know about what's going on and what to expect. I think that is very important.
I think one of the things that you and Kristen have to work on is I think we need to work on how you can relay the message of how valuable their happiness is with you, how badly you want them to advocate you to the people in the life that they care about. Because let's be honest, Kathy, it gets to be really, 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 it gets really defeating when you come in and do the job every single day and it's over and over again, and our clients don't listen, they don't provide you with the documents that you need, you have to come back to them, they get frustrated, there's a high level of anxiety, and people get stressed out, and there never seems to be any value in it from your perspective as far as, yes, you're helping them close a loan, you're doing a good job, but how meaningful would it be if they introduced you or advocated you and your team to somebody in their life that they cared about? Imagine getting a call from somebody saying, Kathy, thank you so much, your team is doing an awesome job. My brother is going to be looking at buying a home, and I told him to call you. Can you call him in return, or vice versa? My team was really good at collecting those referrals during the process. It was about a 30 to 40% return on my investment. So if I had 10 loans in the process, I would be getting about 3 to 4 new leads out of those 10 every month. Now, not every one of them turned into a loan, but the fact that I was getting the leads meant that people cared enough to understand how valuable my time was working with them, or my team's time was.
Agreed.
And I think that's where your higher level conversations go with is, yes, this is my name, this is what I do, this is why we do it, or not why, but this is what my role is and what Sean's role is, but here's the reason why we do it this way. Here's the reason why we care so much about you. And this is the reason why I'm calling you and not just sending you a text message. And I think that genuineness and sincerity and vulnerability gets people to take notice that you're not just a chop shop. You're not just a series of cubicles, because in their eyes, they may never get to meet you. But if they've got a perception of what a loan origination office looks like based on what they think Quicken looks like and what Rock Financial look like, or whoever, we have to convince them or paint a portrait of ourselves that make them see us as being more human and more caring and more motherly and more fatherly. And when they do that, like Tony said earlier, the inference or the impact that it has is, I've talked to 3 other lenders and they all just talk numbers to me. People don't want to be talked to like numbers. They want to talk to somebody who understands their fears and anxieties, and they talk numbers because they don't know what else to talk about. It's up to us. It's up to us to talk about the things that are meaningful and get them to understand the value of the relationship that they have with not only the referral source, but also now with Kristen and Kathy and Tony and Linda. That's all I'm trying to get, and it makes the management of the process, it makes the management of the loans so much easier because in the beginning you set the tone for what people's fears and anxieties are about, and it makes it easier to manage them through the process when people do get anxious. I used to tell my clients that they were going to hate me. I literally would look across the table from my clients and tell them that at some point in the process, you guys are going to hate me, no question. And we would all laugh because everybody was feeling good, and we would all giggle about it. And I would go, no, seriously, each one of you is going to be mad at me. I'm going to pick up the phone and call you or one of my teammates, and you guys are literally going to be upset. And we get it. We understand it. We expect it. But we don't do it to do it intentionally. We do it because we have exhausted every option necessary to get what we need done. And we are trying to make you an advocate of our business. So why would I want to upset you if my number one goal is to make you an advocate and to get you to refer to the people you care about? It sets the tone so different than what everybody has been accustomed and conditioned to expect. And then Kathy and Linda, when you guys expect, it gives Kristen and Tony the freedom to go out there and go, man, our team can handle it. All right, let me go out there and find some new relationships, and let's amp this up a little bit. More referrals that come into the door on the front end gives Kathy and Linda a chance to get more referrals on the back end, and it's a win for everybody.
Like it.
Hey, Doug, I have a question for you. So how would you suggest practicing to make sure that you incorporate that that dialogue in every conversation?
How would you practice
because
it?
I had, well, how would you ensure what's something that I can do to make sure that I don't midstream, that I don't revert to old habits.
Right. Are you asking how you can ensure that Linda does it? Are you wanting to know how to make sure Linda does it?
No, how to make sure I do it.
Oh, well.
It seems like an odd question, but how
do you hold yourself accountable?
Well, think about it this way. I'm just thinking back to, I don't know, two conversations in particular.
Yep.
Where I was going about it, like going into the conversation, it wasn't on my radar. Like I didn't have a reminder, or I wasn't being purposeful going into the conversation, but there was something that triggered during the conversation that brought me back around. And so I just felt like I was in a position, I could have just as easily had a very, like a normal average conversation that I would have had a while back before we started this.
Right.
And I'm just trying to figure out ways to, I guess, remind myself to have the conversation that we're talking about.
Right, right. So I literally, I could pull it up here in a second if you want me to, but I literally did a PowerPoint presentation for the first 20 to 30 times. I literally broke out a PowerPoint presentation that I created and went through the bullet points. I got into a place where I literally knew that I had 4 to 5 things that I had to make sure that I dealt with before I talked about mortgages one bit. 4 or 5 things. I needed to build rapport. I needed to establish the permission to reject me, and for me, the permission to reject them. I needed to establish the triangle of trust and the philosophy of why I do it this way. I needed to establish the bar of expectations, meaning I needed to scare them a little bit to tell them all the things that could potentially go wrong. And I needed to make sure that they understood that by agreeing to work with me, they knew that not only would they have to perform to a standard that I needed them to perform at by returning documents in a timely manner and doing what we needed, but that they would need to agree to become, if we've earned it, an advocate of my business. So I, in my head, had a bullet point presentation that made sure that I covered it in a variety of different ways, and there's 100 different ways to make that presentation work for you. But at the end of the day, if I didn't cover those 4 to 5 things, I never got to the mortgage stuff. Like, that was the only thing that mattered when I met with a client. That's why I was such a horrible loan officer. I would spend 45 to an hour with my clients. The first 45 minutes was all about the presentation and building a relationship and having fun and talking about life and getting them to trust me and talking about the people that they knew and just really engaging with them and talking about my business. And then the last 15 minutes was about paperwork, and I sucked at it. I really did. But when I built a team, I would come in there and I got so good that I could knock out that bullet point presentation in 10 minutes. And that's where I lost the passion for it, because I didn't get to spend time hanging out with them. I came in there, did the presentation, and turned it over to the team, the doctor-nurse philosophy, and that's where I lost the enthusiasm to meet with my clients, because I lost that personal connection with them. My team got the personal connection, which was great, but my business was 63% past client referrals. And so I guess the only way that I ever really learned how to do it was through repetition, and really created either a PowerPoint or a bullet point on a notepad that said, I got to go through these 5 things before I talk about mortgages one bit, period. And it worked for me.
Hey, Doug, have you shared that PowerPoint with us? Because I would love to. Those bullet points that's exactly what I'm talking about. Having some sort of visual cue that I can look at when I'm, even put it on a note card. So I just remember to pull out the note card before I have the conversation.
Right. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull something up here for you. Let me. Where is it? Okay. Hold on. Presentations. This is the right one. Okay. Wow, I haven't done this one in a while. So this is actually my old company. Yeah. Okay. This is. Oh, let me see. That's an old one. I know there's another one. Investment property. Coaching. Oh. That's not it. Where is it? All right, so this is I mean, this is a really old one. I haven't used this one in a while, and it's from my old company. So I'm going to turn my screen on. Hold on one second. Does everybody have a computer? Does everybody have a computer?
No. I'm on the phone. I don't.
All right. Nobody's on a computer, so I don't even need to worry about showing you guys then. Okay. Yeah, I will forward you guys the PowerPoint presentation, but I will tell you that this was tailored around what I did. You can use it, but I'll simplify it for you. Let me work on creating another PowerPoint, and I'll email it out to you guys around really what I think are the 4 or 5 major points that you have to address. But here's the point of it. If you guys aren't willing to sit in front of your client with a PowerPoint presentation, then I'll just come up with a bullet points, and you just got to make sure you talk on these 5 topics before you start talking about loans.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
So you're talking about like the upfront conversation, like the very first conversation that we're having?
Yep, the very front. I mean, when a client calls you for the very first time, and they're like, "Hey, Kristen, my name is Doug. Mr. Brown referred me to you, and I need to do a mortgage." And before you get into before you get into any of the numbers of the loan, you need to stop and go, "You know what, Mr. Brown? Thank you for calling. What did Mr. Brown or Mr. Carter, thanks for calling, Mr. Carter. What did Mr. Brown say about me?" You talk about that. You build rapport. You find out what they said about you. You find out what Mr. Brown's saying about you to me, so that you can call Mr. Brown up and say thank you and talk to him a little bit. But then you build a rapport with me because we share something in common, which is Mr. Brown. And you talk about how your business is built and why it's so imperative that Mr. Brown is thanked, because you care more about Mr. Brown right now than anything. And so when you're done talking to me, you want me to go back to Mr. Brown and say thank you, regardless of what happens. And you build on that by getting them to see you as being somebody who values people's reputations and is authentic. And the farther you get away from having great conversations in the beginning, the more people listen to you. And when people listen to you, they feel better about you because they trust you, because that's why they're listening. And as soon as you get that to happen, people will follow you because they want to help you, because they feel like you've really helped them.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to spend next Friday just working on that bullet point presentation and just kind of working out the best way to do it?
I would.
Yep.
I'd love that.
Okay. All right. I'll set it up that way for next week. Make sure next week then you guys are at your computers, please, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. What is next week? Next week the 15th?
That'd be the 16th. I love it. You sound like Beavis
15th.
from Beavis and Butthead.
Okay. All right.
16th. So if you guys can be at your computer at 2 o'clock next Friday, I'll work on a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Okay. When I'm back in front of my computer and I can pull up my calendar, I'll just confirm that I'll be able to be in front of a computer.
Awesome. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your time with your families and friends. And
sounds good. You do the
Thank
same.
you, Douglas. Appreciate it.
Anybody? Any other questions? Anything else anybody wants to share or address?
So the wedding was great?
wedding was amazing. You know what, Kathy? Or Linda, I can't even tell you, man. Was that Linda?
Yes, it was me.
Oh, hi there. Yeah, you know what? I was telling Kristen, we had hurricane weather until Saturday at 4:30, and I got married at 6:30, and it was blue skies and slight breeze in Tampa. It was the most unreal, divine intervention I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Really cool.
The first divine intervention was the fact that I got a beautiful woman like her to move up from Florida to Michigan. So I guess I'm
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow.
So yeah,
Very cool.
I'm happily enjoying my new life, and I'm working on adopting 2 little girls that are Denise's. So that's my next big.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Cool.
Very cool, Doug.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys. Thank you. So I'm blessed at every corner. I'm blessed to have such a great company to work with and a great bunch of people like you to hang out with, and I got a family to come home to, and sometimes I just pinch myself.
That's
Awesome.
Well, we'll all pinch you in Chicago.
Yeah, you know what? Don't. That's not necessary. You know what you can do? You can just buy me a scotch, and I'll consider it the same. All right, guys. Have a great weekend.
All
right. See you guys.
I'll send out the replay.
Bye,
I'll send out the replay tomorrow on Monday.
Okay.
Good luck.
Awesome.
Kristen.
Thanks.
Hit that
Thanks.
first
See you, Linda. Bye, Tony.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you, Kristen.
Bye.
Bye, Kathy.